Notorious, I think, is one of Hitchcock's best films. I think it's right up there among the Rear Window and North by Northwest. It's one of the great Hitchcock films. It's very subtle, dark movie. It's a dark love story, really.
Hitchcock is known as a master of suspense, but Hitchcock also is the master of romance.
In Notorious, there's some of the most romantic scenes that Hitchcock ever shot, and some of the most sexually compelling moments I've ever seen in film.
I think if you look at most Hitchcock movies, there is an underlying sexual theme going on, especially in Notorious.
David Selznick heard about this story called The Song of the Dragon. It dealt with this woman who was asked to get involved with this man for the good of her country. That was kind of the seed.
Selznick had bought The Song of the Dragon as a potential starring vehicle for Vivien Leigh. Later on, Ingrid Bergman, who had originally turned down the project, became interested once again when she learned that Selznick had identified this story as a potential directing project for Hitchcock.
You've got to work on him and land him.
Mata Hari. She makes love for the papers.
Hitchcock was very interested in the Mata Hari story, the spy who used her feminine wiles to seduce the enemy and extract secrets.
Hitchcock was often best when he collaborated. What terrific collaborators he had in Notorious. Ben Hecht was a journalist who became a playwright, who became a memoirist, who became a writer of various things, including screenplays.
Ben Hecht was probably one of the best, if not the best, screenwriter in the 30s and 40s. He was one of the top screenwriters. And had a brilliant eye for construction and brilliant dialogue. He was really good.
It's funny that nobody knows who Ben Hecht is. He was arguably the world's greatest screenwriter ever.
First time Hitchcock worked with Ben Hecht was on Foreign Correspondent. He needed a patriotic, rousing speech that the journalist hero could deliver at the end, either from Paris or London, whichever got bombed first, rallying Americans to fight Hitler. And Hecht wrote that speech. He wrote two versions of it, and the one in London is used in the film. That was their first collaboration. After that, they worked on Spellbound together.
Ben Hecht is a really fascinating character. His parents were Russian immigrants who had settled in New York, and he was born there on the Lower East Side in 1894. He always had ambitions to be a writer, but his first job out of high school was in a circus where his uncle was a circus strongman. Though eventually he made his way into a newspaper office in Chicago.
He was not above actually creating the news for publication. In fact, he fictionalized pirates on the Chicago River, looting boats and things like that, and he even conned a police officer into taking a picture as if he was making an arrest of pirates on the Chicago River one time.
He also turned his attention later to playwriting and teamed up with Charles MacArthur. The first play that they wrote together was called The Front Page, and it was a huge smash. And they followed that up with 20th Century, which was also a roaring success. Hollywood, of course, came calling to do adaptations of those plays, so Hecht and MacArthur went to Hollywood, where Ben Hecht became one of the most prolific screenwriters of the 1930s through the 40s and 50s.
Hecht was great at providing dialogue for films. He had a great sense of humor. He had a great sense of drama. He seemed to understand what Hitchcock wanted, and Hitchcock knew exactly what Hecht could give him. And Hecht ended up giving him a very good backbone in the film Notorious for a Hitchcock film.
He was the best. He was the best. That's why Notorious is the best.
Hitchcock used to say that he was home free if he got the right cast.
All of Hitchcock's American films feature big Hollywood stars, but Notorious maybe is the ultimate example of Hitchcock getting his dream cast.
There aren't two better people to play those two characters.
Do you want me to take the job?
You're answering for yourself.
I am asking you.
Yes, other people could have played them. A different movie. Not sure that it would be a movie that we're talking about like this all these years later.
He obviously had a special affection for Ingrid Bergman, uses her in at least 3 films, and obviously liked her personally, and as well Cary Grant, I mean, every director in Hollywood wanted to work with Cary Grant. He was the ultimate leading man.
Notorious is incredibly powerful about the things that romance make people do and the consequences that they can have.
The movie does not encourage us to suppose that she's doing what she's doing out of patriotism. She's doing it because, like Dev, she's been in love with him from the beginning, and she's doing it for him. But it is antipathetic to love.
Notorious is one of the favorite films, I think, of so many people today. And it was certainly a favorite film of Ingrid Bergman, who loved doing it. And the most famous scene from it, usually I think, is considered to be The Long Kiss, in which Alfred Hitchcock filmed a long, long kiss between Cary Grant and Ingrid Bergman at a time when long kisses weren't allowed.
There were limitations on how long you could have characters kiss in films, according to the production code back in the 30s and 40s.
He didn't ever arbitrarily choose an angle. It was always for a particular reason. And it always had to do with telling the story. He always used to say, clarify, clarify, clarify. He wanted things to be clear to the audience. He didn't want the audience saying what's going on, what's happening. Then he felt that he would lose them. Suspense is based on knowledge.
He spends an entire crane shot full of a room full of people and music and dancing and big party and everything, and we go down just to focus on a key.
And I asked Hitchcock why he had chosen to do it that way. He said, well, it was the equivalent of saying, in this huge party with all these people, everything's going on, they're not aware of this big drama that's going on, which all comes down. The crux of it all has to do with one little key. So it's a way of saying that visually. He was brilliant at that.
That's what we love about Hitchcock. We love those kinds of spectacular shots that are also tremendously meaningful.
They constructed a huge wooden crane so that the camera could come down from a high shot of the party.
There was no such crane that existed, so they had to build an elevator. They built an elevator in this set and put the camera on the platform and lowered it into that shot. It's just amazing.
That's heavy stuff.
That's Hitchcock.
When you analyze it, it's a really ugly story.
Feel better?
What do you care how I feel?
It's just that it's done so eloquently and so touchingly, but at the end when she says, oh, you love me, when he finally says, I love you, and it's very, very moving, actually.
I love you. I couldn't bear seeing you and him together.
Oh, you love me. Why didn't you tell me before?
I know.
It's her tragedy. I mean, she had to go through all that. He was the guy who was taking it badly, but she actually had to do it.
Brace up, here he comes.
There were at least 3 endings before they finally settled on the one in the film.
The ending is itself rather perfect. It's the payoff of many things, the relationship of Alex Sebastian to his Nazi colleagues, the relationship that he has with his mother, the relationship that he has toward Ingrid Bergman, whom he still loves, everything else notwithstanding. The relationship that Grant and Bergman have to one another. It's the perfect ending to a perfectly realized film.
That film is perfect in every way. It's just the right people in the right place, in the right roles, in front of the camera and behind the camera, doing peak work. It's, you know, it's everything. It's a romance, it's a thriller, it's a film noir. It's truly one of the most twisted love stories in the history of Hollywood.